Assalamualaikum and hi, we are from group AM11O3I. Today we're going to present the inflation in Zimbabwe.
Alright, as we all know, every country has their own economic problems. It's their own responsibility in order to make sure the problem is solved. However, these economic problems sometimes can happen because of economic issues that affect the whole world. There are few economic issues happening around the world. First of all, global imbalance. The connected world of today is in uncharted territory, which is emerging powers like China and oil exporters maintain surplus of ever-increasing magnitudes, while the United States, the only hegemonic power in the world, suffers from an addiction to foreign capital. Then, there are global health crises. The pandemic of COVID-19 is a clear example for this issue. This can impact the world economy in significant and lasting ways. This crisis causes economic disruption by impacting a variety of elements, including government spending, labor market, supply chains, and consumer behavior. Other than that, rise of new powers. The world economy can be drastically altered by countries that undergo rapid economic growth, technological advancement, or geopolitical influence. For example, the rise of China as an economic powerhouse has shaped global trade, with China becoming a leading exporter of goods like electronics, machinery, and consumer products. Studying Zimbabwe's economy is crucial to comprehending the intricacies of a country that has seen both tremendous economic opportunities and challenges over the years. Nonetheless, the nation still faces issues that have impeded its economic development, including political instability, foreign debt, inflation, and unemployment. Then, assessing economic policies is also one of the objectives of the study of the economy in Zimbabwe. This is done in order to evaluate the impact of government policies and reforms on the economy, including monetary policies, fiscal policies, and trade policies.
I will explain why my group chose this country, which is Zimbabwe. So firstly, Zimbabwe's political and economic changes have been marked by the resignation of President Mugabe and the death of opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, with the current government focusing on restoring private property rights and enhancing governance. The climates of Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe is a subtropical climate is divided into 5 zones: low veld, high veld, and low veld. The high veld experience warmer temperatures and wettest conditions, while the low veld experience colder temperatures and mostly dry conditions. The country experiences 4 seasons and is susceptible to tropical storms from the Indian Ocean, which can cause significant precipitation events and La Nina like rainfall. And lastly, what Zimbabwe does for their economic activities. So Zimbabwe economic activities can be divided into 2, which is a primary sector. Majority of Zimbabweans work in this sector, which is agriculture, which is their prioritized food crops and tobacco for domestic consumption and export. Secondly, by mining generates half of Zimbabwe's export revenue. So secondary industry crucial for economic growth. And the second sector, which is tertiary, is dependent on manufacturing and primary industrial operation, which is in tourism, the largest sectors accounting for 57% of GDP. World Travel and Tourism Council, which is WTTC, estimates tourism's GDP contribution was 8.1% in 2016.
So next, my name is Nur'ain Nadia. I will explain about the inflation. So what is inflation? Inflation is persistent and sustained increases in the average or aggregate price level of goods and services within the economy are referred to as inflation. Inflation suggests a rise in living expenses, which results in reduction in buying power. It is the case that too much money is chasing too few goods. Consumer money will not purchase as much today as it could yesterday due to inflation, which reduces a currency's value. Based on the graph, this calculation shows that inflation in Zimbabwe is predicted to reach 577.21% in 2020 after reaching 10.61% in 2018. The future is predicted to slow down, but given Zimbabwe's history of bad monetary policy, which includes one of the worst episodes of hyperinflation, this seems doubtful. Next, for restoring the trend, based on the graph, expectations play a crucial role in inflation, making it difficult to manage once it spirals out of control. Zimbabwe's hyperinflation from 2005 to 2008 caused its currency to devalue dramatically, from 10,000 to over 2.6 trillion per USD, leading to economic collapse, unsustainable government operations, and low GDP per capita. The 2009 currency reform, which removed 12 zeros, failed to stabilize the economy. The ousting of Robert Mugabe in 2017 signaled a potential shift in governance after decades of mismanagement. By 2023, Zimbabwe's GDP per capita reached $1993.04, reflecting slight improvement, but budget deficits remain, projected to stay negative until 2029 at negative 7.21% of GDP. Although government revenues from taxes and grants are improving, they remain insufficient to cover expenses. Many Zimbabweans rely on foreign currencies like the US dollar, euro, or soft African rank due to distrust in local policies and the lingering effects of hyperinflation. Achieving long-term stability will require consistent economic governance, robust reforms, and the rebuilding of trust in monetary policies.
The three causes of inflation. For the first causes is excessive money printing by the Zimbabwe government can lead to negative effects such as the ringgit can plummet, the price of daily goods increase dramatically and has a negative impact on the country's economy. The government has printed money at an extreme rate where Mugabe at that time worked at the time printed a lot of money to meet the demands of high salaries for government officials. For example, that can be seen that Zimbabwe have to pay using a bundle of Zimbabwe money to buy vegetables. Traders, and at the same time, traders also put the price of eggs worth 100 billion Zimbabwe dollars for just 3 eggs. So every buyer who wants to buy has to carry a big plastic bag full of money. When printing this money without limits, it will have a negative effect where the value of the Zimbabwe dollar currency is worthless and has been suspended. The second causes of inflation, unstable economic management is one of the main causes of inflation in Zimbabwe, which contributes to economic instability and high inflation in the country. High inflation has led to the closure of many small business and farms, causing a shortage of food and basic goods. This scarcity drives up the price of products like wheat, corn, and other crops due to high demand and limited supply. The last causes is lack of supply leading to a decline and a major decline in agriculture production. Lack of supply leading to a decline and a major decline in agriculture production have a very high inflation because of causing many small and medium enterprises to close their operation. Many farms by farmers have been closed, causing a lack of food and basic products. This shortage causes the price of goods such as wheat, corn, and others agriculture products to increase due to high demand but limited supply. This is the two effects that can damage the country's economy in Zimbabwe. The first effect is inflation that is too high in Zimbabwe has a damaging effect on the economy and also the lives of the people in the country. This is because of the economic management that was not administered properly by the government at that time. Then, extreme inflation causes the price of goods and services to increase rapidly, reducing people's purchasing power. For example, the price of bread or oil can increase within a day or just a few hours. The second effect is most of the Zimbabwe migrate abroad, especially in the country of South Africa, which brought a large percentage of over 30% of Zimbabwe immigrants. Total inflation leads to poverty, unemployment, and instability, driving many Zimbabweans to seek jobs abroad, reducing the local workforce. While negative, it provides an additional income source for them during high inflation. So, South Africa is one of the places that Zimbabweans to go to the country.
Monetary policy is a tool used by the central bank to manage the money supply and interest rates in an economy. In Zimbabwe, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has used this policy to control inflation and stabilize the currency. Zimbabwe has faced high inflation, causing prices to rise quickly. People don't trust the Zimbabwean dollar after past economic problems, and many still use foreign currencies like the US dollar. This makes the central bank's efforts less effective. To fix these issues, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe raised interest rates, sold government bonds to control money flow, and tried to back the Zimbabwean dollar with gold to restore them. They also stopped printing too much money to control inflation. Despite these actions, inflation remains high, and people still prefer foreign currencies over the Zimbabwean dollar. This makes the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's efforts less effective as Zimbabwe continues to rely on foreign money instead of its own. Open market operations (OMO) is a method used by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to control the economy. They sell government bonds to reduce the amount of money circulating in the economy. This helps control inflation and stabilize the currency. However, Zimbabwe faces challenges. Many people don't trust the Zimbabwean dollar, so they prefer to use foreign currencies like the US dollar. The banking system is weak, making it harder for open market operations to work effectively. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has raised interest rates and sold bonds to manage inflation, but these actions have not fully solved the problem, as the public still lacks trust in the Zimbabwean dollar and continues using foreign money. If Zimbabwe can improve confidence in the Zimbabwean dollar and reduce its dependence on foreign currencies, open market operations can help control inflation and promote economic growth. With trust in the local currency, open market operation would become a more effective tool to stabilize the economy.
SRR, which means Statutory Reserve Requirement. So, the Statutory Reserve Requirement (SRR) is a monetary policy used by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe (RBZ) as a crucial regulatory measure implemented by central banks to promote financial stability and control monetary policy. This requirement required commercial banks and other financial institutions to allocate a designated percentage of their total deposit liabilities as reserves. These reserves act as a safety net, ensuring that banks have a sufficient amount of liquid funds available to meet withdrawal demands from depositors and to support lending activities. Higher reserve requirements reduce liquidity, curbing excessive lending and inflation. Meanwhile, lower reserve requirements increase liquidity, encouraging lending and economic activity. 2021, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe (RBZ) implemented significant changes to the statutory reserve requirement (SRR) as part of its effort to lead economic recovery due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Originally, in June 2022, the RBZ made a strategic decision to lower the SRR from 4.5% to 2.5%. However, as the economic landscape evolved, the RBZ reviewed its approach. In February 2021, the central bank raised the SRR for demand and call deposits from 2.5% to 5%. This increase was intended to stabilize the banking sector and ensure that banks maintained sufficient reserves, while the SRR for time deposits remained unchanged at 2.5%. In the first half of 2022, the statutory reserve ratios for demand and call deposits remained at 10%, while time deposits were set at a lower rate of 2.5%. During this time, there was a noticeable increase in broad money circulation, resulting in a significant increase in statutory reserve balance. Specifically, these reserves increased from $20.11 billion on January 31, 2022 to $28.89 billion on July 22, 2022.
Interest rate. John Maynard Keynes' theory suggests interest rates are influenced by the lending market and servers' liquidity preference. It suggests that interest rates adjust to money supply and demand with bond prices decreasing and rates rising with money demand. Recent theories reject this idea, focusing on financial and physical asset decision. Next, central banks use various tools to implement monetary policy, primarily focusing on determining or affecting interest rates. The bank's discounts and other rates initially impact the financial system. Central bank's interest rates decisions signal the financial system, which adjusts its rates accordingly. The central bank, as the sole currency source, can determine interest rates based on its production of currency. It can ration the supply among buyers based on a key may determine quantities available at a fixed interest rates. Treasury bills and bonds can be bought or sold through open market operations, affecting their price and interest rate. Adjustment to minimum reserve requirements can directly affect a financial system's liquidity and interest rates. Central banks can drain liquidity by mandating specific deposit financial institutions. Besides that, by rising interest rates, Zimbabwe's economy is strengthened. So, economists and local business leaders warn of potential economic disaster due to increased interest rates and inflation. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe (RBZ) increased the bank policy rate from 80% to 200%, affecting business profits and cash flows. Expenses may hinder local companies like ECO120 from expanding or starting new projects. The government blames the steep rise in borrowing costs on efforts to curb the annual inflation rate and due to speculative borrowing. ECO120, a competitor, has taken out higher interest loans, necessitating a reorganization of interest payments and expenses.
To sum up, Zimbabwe's economic struggles, especially with inflation, show how important good policies, proper resource management, and public trust are for a stable economy. The country's history of hyperinflation, caused by printing too much money, weak leadership, and limited supplies, has left deep problems. These challenges have caused economic instability and forced many people to leave the country in search of better opportunities. Zimbabwe urgently needs to reform, stabilize its currency, restore trust, and create a foundation for sustainable growth. However, these efforts have been less effective because people don't trust the Zimbabwean dollar, prefer foreign currencies, and face weak financial system. To make these policies work, Zimbabwe must ensure better governance, rebuild trust in its currency, and create opportunities for investment, job growth, and improve productivity.